Hello, everyone. My name is Nadine Hernandez, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. Just a few tips before we get started with David James and Michael Beavers. This webinar will be recorded, and then if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, just feel free to drop those in the chat. So without any hesitation, let's go ahead and get started with David James.
Thanks, Nadine. Hi, everybody. Thank you for making time to join us for this webinar, Redesigning the Passenger Journey. Just do some quick introductions. I'm David James. I lead Esri's Airport GIS sales activities, and I'm going to be working with Michael Beavers today. Mike is our airport's GIS Senior Solutions Engineer, and Mike's going to be getting into the webinar a little bit later with some demonstrations.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks, Mike. So let's get started. I think we can all agree that 2020 has been very challenging, and that the COVID crisis has had a profound impact on the entire air travel sector. We don't have a solution for all of the challenges airports are facing, but we do want to share some ideas that we've developed working with several leading airports as they plan their recovery from the COVID-19 crisis. Our main objective today is to share ideas about how you can utilize your investment in Esri technology to support a key aspect of your airport's COVID recovery plans, the passenger journey. Okay, Mike, next slide. I think it may be helpful to take a look back at 2020 to provide some perspective for the impact of COVID-19 and some of the challenges ahead. It's really amazing to think that just in January, things were so different. Most airports were operating at or above capacity. Airport costs were typically aligned with their revenue. And our passengers sort of had established behaviors that we all were familiar with. Airline schedules were fairly predictable, with the exceptions of, weather, unplanned weather events and so on, but generally very predictable. And airport resources were generally aligned with demand. Then zoom forward to now, October. We've got massive spare capacity. I don't have to tell you that. Both Mike and I have been to airports recently, and some of them are just like ghost towns even now, and they are recovering, but still lots of spare capacity. We're hearing that costs are way exceeding revenue, even with, unfortunate situations with furloughs and other reduction in staff. Costs are generally still exceeding revenues. There's significant passenger uncertainty about, which flights are available, what are the new procedures, am I going to be safe, all of those sort of questions. As I mentioned, airline schedules are a little bit unpredictable. And, you got fewer resources at the airport and probably more complexity with all the new procedures than you were dealing with in January. And then as we look forward, reading all of the air travel press and all the analysts, they say the recovery is going to be slow and unpredictable. And even when airports have recovered, they're likely going to recover with their capacities being reduced just because of social distancing requirements and so on. Probably going to see continued cost containment, probably for most of 2021, and airports will continue to, for as long as possible, operate with fewer resources. So that's the sort of context for today's webinar. Next slide, Mike. So I think everybody appreciates that customer experience has always been a key performance metric for airports. The COVID-19 crisis has redefined what is important to travelers and how they will approach travel now and in the future. In pre-COVID times, the focus of the customer experience was on safety first, as well as minimizing delays and providing convenient access to retail and food services and the like. As far as ground transportation was concerned, app rides, Uber and Lyft, were commanding a growing share of the market. All of that may have changed. The airports we've consulted with recently have all told us that they have new customer experience focus based on safety and health first. The new focus aims to reassure passengers that their safety and health is the #1 priority. The new focus must also prepare travelers for new travel procedures that include things like social distancing, temperature checks, and I've read even this week at some airports testing. It's optional, but maybe some passengers would like to take advantage of that. It's all new. Based on the airports we've spoken to, there appears to be a big shift also in traveler ground transportation preferences. The preference is now away from app rides and going more towards airport parking. I assume that's something to do with passengers just being uncertain, feeling unsafe about traveling in rideshare vehicles. I don't know, but that's sort of a picture that's developing that we're seeing. The airports we met with have all engaged in new customer experience initiatives, and they're all focused on redefining what they're calling the passenger journey. Okay, Mike, next slide. The next two slides provide a high-level overview of the emerging passenger journey story. Airports we've spoken to are planning to provide passengers with a digital guide that helps the passenger manage each step of their journey from home to their departure gate and the reverse for return journeys. The airports are trying to embed the concept of the suite path into the digital story. The concept of the suite path is analogous to the way road warriors used to plan their journey in pre-COVID days. They would intuitively eliminate all potential delays and arrive just in time at their gate. I was a road warrior back in January, and this was my mode of operation, and I probably had a suite path for all of the airports I regularly visited. That knowledge base that I had then doesn't work now. The intention is that the digital guide would prepare passengers for all of the new COVID procedures and to help them minimize any perceived exposure to COVID infection risks. The digital guide would complement other new procedures that airports are introducing, such as biometrics and touchless technologies that are being adopted by airports and airlines to streamline the passenger journey. Okay, Mike, next slide. So the journey, starts from home, takes them all the way to the terminal. Along the way, they may provide them with real-time traffic updates, real-time TSA updates, and so on. But once they get to the terminal, they provide them with wayfinding, digital wayfinding that will provide step-by-step guidance to their departure gate. Now, wayfinding has been around for quite a while. And what we can say is for airports wanting to provide wayfinding capabilities, there are many considerations that will define how this service can be delivered. We will discuss some of these options in more detail a little later. What I can tell you is also an ongoing debate about mobile web, airport apps, airline apps, consumer apps such as Google and Apple, about which is the best approach here. Most of the airports we've consulted with recently, I can tell you, are planning to release their own airport mobile web solution or airport mobile app. And again, these are just some of the steps, high-level view of some of the steps airports planning to include in this digital story. And we'll share these slides, make these available afterwards, so you can sort of look at these in a little bit more detail. Okay, Mike, next slide. Another important aspect of the customer experience initiatives we have discussed with airports is the concept of a customer experience operations center. The Customer Experience Operations Center will provide a comprehensive customer-centric view of airport operations for airport staff, showing important performance metrics and real-time and trend passenger movement data to ensure the optimum customer experience at all times. Mike's going to provide some ideas about how you can exploit Esri technology to support a customer experience operations center at your airport. But as you can see here, it's taking Esri dashboards to show really important KPIs that would help an airport keep track and keep their customer experience on track as well. Okay, Mike. I just want to sort of visit a few other things that are going on in this new COVID-19 new normal. And here are some of the more obvious challenges you're probably already seeing, and some opportunities that you may want to consider taking advantage of. One trend I'm tracking a lot in a lot of my discussions with airports is technology consolidation. I've spoken to several airport CIOs that are being asked to reduce operating costs, and they are looking to eliminate unnecessary and duplicate technology capability. Typically, they want to build a foundation based on enterprise class technology platforms, and many are positioning Esri as the location and spatial cornerstone of their foundation. Okay, Mike. Next slide. And so I'm an advocate for promoting this fairly simple enterprise technology foundation where you have an ERP, whether that's Oracle, SAP, etc., for your finance, HR, procurement, all of those back office business requirements. You have typically an enterprise asset management system like Maximo, CityWorks, or Infor, many others. You also have the airport operations database that contains all the operations data about flight schedules, gate assignments, and so on. And then what we're saying is position Esri as the other cornerstone of this foundation to support all of the location-based business requirements in the airport. The ArcGIS platform is an enterprise class platform that supports on-premise and cloud architectures. It's scalable and provides high performance with a standards-based open integration framework. And I believe it's capable of supporting many diverse location-based airport business requirements. I just want to sort of reiterate a few of the guiding principles that we've listed here. Again, use Esri for all location-based business requirements. Only use other solutions as a last resort. Configure COTS apps from Esri. Minimize customization. Ideally, no customization. Focus on high-value, low-effort solutions wherever you can. And finally, don't let perfect get in the way of good. And what I mean by that is, don't agonize about making every solution perfect. Launch it, release it, put it into production, and then refine it based on feedback you get from end users over time. I think they're good guiding principles to think about. Okay, Mike. Next slide. Okay, so time for a demo from Mike, some demos. Mike's going to show you how he's sort of put in some of these ideas about redefining the passenger journey into effect using technologies from Esri like Hub, story maps, wayfinding, and dashboards. So Mike, over to you for some demonstrations.
Thank you, David. All right, I'm going to start out by verifying that you can hear me okay, and that you see my screen.
Yeah, you're good, Mike.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so thank you everyone for being here. During the time that I show you some of the tools that I've developed and we're deploying at different airports, I want you to kind of divide your attention between the story and the use cases for these tools, and then the technology that's being used to share that information with others. So I'll make that real clear to you as well, but we're going to toggle back and forth. Our focus is going to be between the use and then the tool that is focused on helping support that use. So this is a website, and I built this website specifically for this webinar. And it's intended to look very similar to any airport's website. So you have the technology at your fingertips when you have subscriptions to the ArcGIS Enterprise to deploy websites like this using Hub. So you could skim this site to look exactly as your own website already exists. And then it's intended really to focus on two specific users. Anyone internally at the airport who is an employee or a contractor of the airport, or the public who uses the airport as passengers. So we'll focus on those two major components as I make my way through the website. So typically what you will see at most airport websites is, of course, their brand. Like we've got this Esri International Airport here, this is our brand. And then things like departure and arrival times, when these can be updated in real time. Likewise, you can include things like the weather, and we see that typically. But what we're starting to see now with airports is the ability then to integrate things like building information models into websites. And now internally, staff can access this information securely through the web, and then be able to see information that's associated directly with this BIM model through a web viewer securely. It doesn't require any specific software other than a web browser. So I've embedded this 3D app that is reading a web scene of a Revit model directly into a website. And what you'll see here is not only do we have the model itself, but we have attribute information, including a link to the actual Revit model itself, or even any assets. So let's make our way inside the terminal now. And as an asset manager or anyone doing maintenance inside the facility or for safety and security, to be able to have a detailed, realistic model, a digital twin per se, of the airport terminal is really important. So I could go in and then see as high level of detail as I needed to about any feature, including things like wall plugs. So if this were, say, a wall plug and it were broken, I could use this sort of an app to go in and then link to the as-built drawing, or with an asset ID, I could link directly to my asset management system. So lots of airports are seeing the value in using these tools to manage their workflows and their facilities inside the airport, like handling units. So if I shut off this handling unit, this air unit, then what would be affected? What rooms or what parts of the terminal would be affected? So I could link to my CAD drawing and as-built drawing directly through this model. Same thing for safety and security purposes. So having that digital twin at your fingertips with a web browser gives you the ability really to go in and then dive very deep into the terminal. Let's talk about from a passenger's standpoint now and how that digital twin makes its way into an indoor model that me as a passenger is going to be able to use now. So I'm on the website, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my journey from the passenger drop-off point, and I want to use a tool to help me get from that passenger drop-off point to the gate. And this happened to me the other day when I was actually at the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport. I'm going to zoom in there, and what I'm looking at is I just logged into the airport's website, and I did this on my tablet, and I've just been dropped off here at the drop-off point, and then using the tools that are part of this indoor app. This is going to give me wayfinding and directions to the Delta gate, where the ticket counter, where I can actually print out my boarding pass. And what you'll see on the left is the step-by-step directions. And then on the right, of course, is the map with the very detailed drawing plans that are part of ArcGIS Indoors. So again, I'm on my tablet. I'm wayfinding my way from the gate or the ticket counter to the gate. And it tells me how long it takes me to get there and gives me the step-by-step instructions. And with an airport like Atlanta, or a lot of them, passengers may not be familiar. In fact, I missed a connecting flight because I wasn't really keen on how long it would take me to get, like you can see here, from my gate to a connecting gate. It took longer than I thought. So with a tool like this, it would make that much easier. Even using different modes of travel, I could either be walking or wheelchair bound. This app gives you the ability to do that. So right now I'm navigating my way to the Starbucks coffee because I had a little bit of time since I was a little bit more efficient in getting there. Then I could pick up my coffee and then I could find out the route to my gate using this tool, and it's all web-based. So now I've made it to the gate, and then I realize I've got a little extra time. So what I can then do would be then to generate another route and go, well, from here, maybe I want to go to the Delta Sky Miles Sky Club, and from this gate, how do I get there? And where's the nearest one? So again, very simple, a tool that's deployed through the website that I, as a passenger, can use directly on my tablet or my cell phone. It doesn't require a blue dot, but if the airport has indoor positioning systems, then those can also be integrated into this technology so that I could navigate my way and then see myself in real time. If you want more information about indoors, this URL that is this website contains this video, and you can see details about ArcGIS Indoors by watching this video. So feel free to do that.
Hey, Mike.
Let's change. Yes, sir.
Just want to mention, so what you showed was a web-based app that could work on a web, a mobile sort of form factor for a mobile web.
Exactly.
ArcGIS Indoors also has mobile apps available for iOS and Android. You can do the same with those. In addition, you can also produce a blue dot using the ArcGIS Indoors mobile apps. But again, as Mike said, that blue dot would require some infrastructure, beacons or Wi-Fi, lots of technologies. That's a fast sort of evolving space that allow you to generate the blue dot. But ArcGIS Indoors can support both web and mobile app sort of deployments. Okay, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, David. Okay, so we're going to change gears a bit here, and we're going to talk now about, while the passengers are using those sorts of technology, the airport operations personnel need a common operations picture, a tool to help them understand not just what's going on at the airport in real time, but those things that are happening around the airport. So I'm using a dashboard in my operations center every day to then see things, including live traffic around the airport. And also, if there's any delays that might be affecting the airport. So what's included in this app would be Waze alerts and road closures. Also, live traffic feeds where you can see that there's some delays that might affect people making their way into the airport. I can also access video cameras, the CCTV cameras. So if I wanted to get a real-time picture of what's going on and why that delay is happening to vehicles coming into the airport, obviously there's some construction going on, and that's actually right now in Oahu. So these sorts of tools give you the ability then to see live information that might affect airport operations from a passenger perspective. things like buses. Show me where the buses are that might service the airport in real time. So you can see those things as they occur in real time. Let's go, now we'll go dive into the airport a little bit closer, and then let's take a look at things like what are the live information you can gain access to in these viewers? Well, of course, live aircraft. So these are flight aware feeds that you can embed directly into this dashboard. And any other modes of travel, you can see at this airport in Oahu, they also manage ship traffic. So you can mash any data you need from live feeds directly into this dashboard and then have a real-time understanding for everyday operations and then in the event of an emergency as well. So these dashboards become critical for understanding airport operations from a management perspective. Let's move now on to airports and lease space, because before COVID, and I think once we recover from that, a decent amount of revenue is going to be generated or is being generated or can be from lease space. So this dashboard connects to your lease management system. And what you'll see is these individual lease spaces inside the terminal and the rates that they're being charged for rent. And you might be able to see trends and patterns and then start to ask yourself, why do these lease spaces require more revenue or more rents? Because they generate more revenue. And here's why they generate more revenue. With the technology that's available as part of RTS Indoors, you're able to then connect to the individual people who are passengers moving through the terminal, and you're seeing their MAC addresses, the location of their individual mobile devices, because they get on your Wi-Fi. So you're collecting the location of that information and putting it into a data store that then you can start to do analytics on and then start to see through time density of people. So now it becomes a lot clearer why these spaces demand more rent, or maybe they should, because there's more density of people there. And then those that are on the outliers maybe demand less. So you could market these areas more effectively. I was in the Charlotte Douglas Airport last night coming back to Texas, and it looked like it was about 50% capacity. So being able to see passenger traffic, and when I said it looked like that, using these tools, you could actually get a very definitive understanding of the density of passengers, and not just for lease space, but things as simple as restrooms. So obviously, there's more people moving through this part of the terminal, and because of that fact, these restrooms require more continual cleaning. So these tools help give a real clear understanding of what's necessary and the sort of rents that you might be able to demand in a lease space.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
That heat map could also be used to provide the customer experience operations center with a real-time view of social distancing. So again, using, say, anonymous tracking of mobile devices via Wi-Fi access points, you could produce heat maps like this that would send alerts. If you were using GeoEvent server, it could send alerts once the number of people in a given space exceeds a threshold that's been established, so that, you know, if you see a larger than acceptable crowd congregating in a particular area, then you can dispatch some customer service agents to see if you can get people to space out a bit more. So we got some tools that I think would really be helpful with some of these new COVID expectations. Okay, Mike.
Yeah, and you know, maybe even digital signage too. One of the things when I was near the gate last night, just as people began boarding the airplane, they weren't honoring that social distance. It made me nervous. So being able to see these types of clusters in real time and then be able to do push notifications or modify digital signage or through audio announcements, these sorts of tools can then help you manage the customer experience. So let's talk a little bit more in detail now about how your website can then convey information specifically about coronavirus. And what you'll see here are these statistics that come directly from Johns Hopkins, and they're fed live into this website. So right now, these are the confirmed cases, those recovered, and those are deaths globally. You could modify this and have it within the county or the city based on the data that you have access to. You can also include these sorts of statistics with any information that you have at the airport, like sales information or lease space. So any data that you maintain or manage, you could then put these statistics into your own website and expose those internally or to the public if you'd like. Let's talk about an app that different organizations are starting to use to manage their workforce and then understand where people are in real time. So I'm going to click this link, and I'd like for you to watch this next section where I'm going to use a dashboard now. Now I'm a manager of this operation at the airport. I want to see where all my people are located because like a lot of people, I'm telecommuting right now. So this dashboard gives a quick real-time understanding of the number of people that are working on site or from home, and the numbers of people that are off site or maybe absent at all. So for anybody who's managing personnel at the airport, it's critical to have that real-time understanding of who's at work, who's off site, and where are they at this very moment. So we've got a list of those people that have already checked in. And I checked in earlier today, and then you can see on the map, because I checked in using the app, that I'm actually located right here in San Antonio. So if David were to check in too, then his location would show up there. Now, how does that happen? And how do these numbers get fed into this dashboard? Well, using your mobile device, you could then log in to this app and then fill that out quickly. So now I'm at home, and I wake up this morning and I said, I am at work today, and I'm going to temporarily work from home, and I'm not going to be around anyone else. And optionally, if the airport chose to enable this feature, you could then ask for the status of the individual based on HIPAA requirements. You'd want to configure this and say, no, I don't have a fever, I'm not experiencing a cough, or I don't have any difficulty breathing. And are there any other members in the house that are experiencing symptoms? No. For contact tracing, this tool is really very important. And then I just simply submit it. And once it's submitted, then that information would be fed back into the dashboard so that you could have real-time access to it. Another thing that I've done, go ahead, David.
What's this app called, Mike? I think it's the business continuity app.
It certainly is, and there's a whole solution that's available. If you click this link, it'll take you to the business continuity solution website, where with the technology you already have as part of your subscription, you can deploy these tools, this dashboard, and the surveys as one shrink wrap solution.
Yeah, what we know, Mike, you know, some of the discussions we've had recently with airports already operating with fewer staff members, we've heard a lot of managers express concern that in the event that they had a sort of outbreak, a COVID outbreak at the airport, they're really worried it could shut the airport down because, you know, the disease could spread quickly if they didn't have a tool like this that would help them understand who's ill and where they are, who they've been in contact with. So again, I think this is a really great app that some of our airport customers should take a closer look at.
Yeah, and I'll send a link after the webinar to this and the other solutions as well. I think another important point would be, because people rely so heavily on social media, would be able to use tools that are part of your hub to include Twitter feeds. So I just brought in 2 Twitter feeds, one from the FAA and then another from the CDC. So you might also have a Twitter feed for the airport, and that would be important to include in your own website or your own hub site. Another tool is now being able to reassure passengers that you're maintaining the terminal in a state of cleanliness. So this tool is one that airports are using to be able to track airport deep cleaning operations. So it's a variation on a theme. what you're seeing here is an operations dashboard, and I've divided up within each terminal these cleaning areas like you see here. And then as I zoom in, you're going to see greater levels of detail about the individual terminal, including the seats. And I've just divided these areas up so that now I could see great levels of detail. And as these areas are being cleaned, as a manager of that terminal, then I could go in and I could see those areas within the terminals that have been cleaned by today, yesterday, or last week. I could configure those filters any way I like. Or as the manager, I could go in and then look at individual zones and then just see those zones and then see the status of those things as they've been cleaned already. Likewise, restrooms are obviously need routine and regular cleaning, so we can see those, the status of those and when those restrooms have been cleaned as that operation is going on. So really important to be able to use a tool like this to track the cleaning operations and then support this understanding that the airport is doing all it can to maintain these areas in a state of cleanliness. So like all the other dashboards, these are configurable. So depending upon what your specific needs are, then you can go in and then create lists. So I can see those areas that have been cleaned or in the process of being cleaned right now, and then drill into that information for those that have already been cleaned and then those have been inspected. And we can also use a tool. I'm now changing roles. I'm the supervisor of the cleaning operations, and all I've got is a tablet. And what I'm doing is watching the cleaning operations as they're going on. So I'm walking through the terminal, and all I would easily do would be then to tap on the area that I'm located in as it's being cleaned, list who's the cleaner, what time that cleaning operation is going on, and then its current status. And then I could put in comments about that cleaning operation using my tablet. And remember, it's secure. Take a picture if I want of that cleaning operation that's going on. And then I would submit it. Now, because this is connected to your organization, the minute that that area has been submitted and cleaned, the information is updated in the dashboard. So you can see that change as it happened. There's some other apps and tools that are available to you if you want to explore those in this website. I would encourage you to look at some solutions and some tools that are part of the Experience Builder, Tools, Story Maps, Survey 123, and Operations Dashboard. But honestly, I'll send you this link to the website that talks about dashboards, story maps, and then websites or hub sites. David, you wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Mike, that airport cleaning app, we can make that, the template for that, freely available to anyone that needs it.
Good
if
point.
You just reach out to Mike, he'll point you to where you can get that.
Yeah, I've helped airports deploy this already. So, in closing, what I'd like to remind everyone is that the tools that I use to build out my website and convey this information to those two sets of users, the internal staff and the managers of the airport, and then the public, really are divided into three. The first would be the dashboards, and you saw that today, but if you open up this URL after the webinar is complete, you'll see information about as the ArcGIS dashboard. And then I've selected some dashboards that I thought were well built and very clearly tell stories. And then there's another dashboard that shows the airfield operations daily inspections. So you can click that link there. And again, story maps, likewise, how to tell your story. And really, these tools can help affect change and then bring about awareness. So click here and you'll be able to go directly to the ArcGIS Story Maps website. And then again, I've selected some story maps that I think tell very good stories, not necessarily focused on airports. But this story map does talk about airport operations and noise. And then finally, Hub. It's a community engagement tool. It's just a way that airports can transform their operations and communicate their story and then collaborate both internally and with the public. So if you want information about how hub is deployed, you can click here and go to the hub site. And finally, there's some selected hub sites that I think tell very good stories. And then lastly, the Esri's aviation hub site, that'll take you to a link where you can see how I've used it and embedded some of the apps I've shown you today. You can even go and download data of a specific airport that's authoritative from the FAA through a tool that's part of your hub or open data. And then again, you can see information about these other tools that I used and embedded in the hub. All right, David, I'm going to go back to the slide deck for you, and then we'll transition back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Some great demonstrations, really appreciate it. Okay, so as a former IT leader, I used to subscribe to this this mantra: never let a good crisis go to waste. I learned the value of that quotation on a number of occasions when it allowed me to make course corrections that I would have found difficult to do in normal circumstances. And as GIS professionals, I want to encourage you to pursue these recommendations that we've got here. I think through what Mike's shown you today, there are probably some Esri capabilities that you already have access to through your investment that your airport leadership probably isn't aware of. And so we're not suggesting for one moment that you create an airport website exclusively using Esri tools. What we are suggesting, though, is you can create some really interesting content using Esri tools that can be embedded in your airport website. We've also got tools that would allow your airport to build a very sophisticated, comprehensive mobile app as well. I also just want to encourage you to maximize that investment in Esri technology. Think beyond the sort of traditional mapping solutions that you work on. There are many other areas where you can leverage that technology in some of those dashboard examples that Mike showed you. And finally, definitely start to position Esri as the cornerstone of your IT foundation, as we mentioned earlier. Also on this slide, I've included some recent ACI articles, the links to those articles. They're all about this idea of the passenger journey. This is being promoted not just by Esri, but a lot of the leading publications for the aviation industry. I'm already working with several airports that have started working on these initiatives, and they're getting a really positive reaction. Okay, so again, we want you to exploit all of these technologies, the web technology, the story maps, the wayfinding, and the dashboards to drive home this idea of the new passenger journey. We can certainly see lots of potential for using the ArcGIS Indoors wayfinding, whether it's just wayfinding in its own right or wayfinding with a blue dot. We can support both of those. We really would encourage you to think about this sort of approach to implementing some of these things. It's what I call crawl, walk, run. So start off with some simple, relatively simple solutions to gain some consensus from other stakeholders, build confidence in them that GIS can really deliver some unique solutions, and then over time increase the sophistication and the pace at which you're working until ultimately you're delivering very sophisticated solutions at a very fast pace. We really want the airport GIS community to embrace all of these capabilities like our Esri customers are in other vertical markets. We think we've got some great GIS leaders in our airport community, and we want to do everything we can to help you take advantage of all these technologies. Okay, Mike, next slide. So let's get started. We don't want to be just the cheerleaders here. We want to put some skin in the game. So if there's any way we can help you If some of these ideas appeal to you, you want to pursue them further, we're prepared to put on some no-cost tutorial sessions to help you get started with things like story maps, wayfinding, and so on. Just reach out to me or Mike, and we'll be happy to host some sessions with you to, as I say, get you started, help you understand how you can exploit some of these great capabilities that are part of your Esri subscription. So really, that's what we wanted to cover today. If there are any questions, let me just take a quick look. We'll, no, I don't see any questions. So Nadine, am I seeing all of the questions? I don't see any questions that have been submitted. And if that's the case, I think we can end a little bit early today and allow people to get 12 or 13 minutes of their day back.
Yes, so it looks like there were no questions but thank you again for joining us today, David and Mike. That was a really good presentation. In the case anything does come in, just feel free to reach out to David and Mike. They're very kind, and they have a lot of good information. So again, thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out. So thank you.
So long, everybody.
And Nadine, we'll be making the recording available, and I think we also make the PowerPoint available for download as well.
Yes,
as well as the link to the hub site that I built today too and showed everyone.
Yeah, we can definitely get that shared out to everyone, and I'll send that out in an email tomorrow. So you should have all of the resources from today in that email.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody.
So long.
Take care. Yeah. Bye.